Hey, willkommen in Graz. It's good to be back. It's my hometown actually, and I'm unfortunately not that often here, which is a shame. I'm trying to behave more about that. So I will try to talk super quickly. Because there are only 20 minutes, but let's see that we fit 7 years into it. So the talk is about 7 years of Mipumi, and I tried to count the years down because actually there were always some things involving these years. It means that we started with a strategy and this strategy changed and changed over time. So about me, just to cut it short, I'm in the industry for 20 years and I worked on a couple of games. This is when Mipumi started. It started super small. You see, I also had a different haircut at this time. It was in 2009, 7 years ago. And the first idea that we had was we wanted stability. Because usually there are different possibilities. One of them is you have a great idea and you want to start up a company and see that this idea ends up in a great and successful game. We have been working, the founders have been working in the industry already for a couple of years, and that's why we thought, first of all, we wanted stability. So what we did is we signed a contract before we even started a company, and we had a project to work on before we even started the company, so we would have a cash flow. This was the first game series that we did. It was Animal World, it was Nintendo DS games. We did 13 titles in the first year. It was educational games for kids, so it was not big. Each game took about a month or two to work on, but actually it was great to start a company. It was also great to see if we could work as a team. The next thing was then to achieve flexibility. Why? End of 2009, it was really hard working on handheld games because the handheld game market collapsed. It was that there were only low budgets left. That's why we had to see that we worked on different genres, on different types of games. And that's why we started looking into the browser market. We saw into Facebook games, we saw into browser games, and that's when we started to work on Last Mysteries. Last Mysteries was a browser game. It was multiplayer. It was Indiana Jones meets Diablo, so to speak. It was in Flash, and you had character classes, and you had to work through 4 different regions and through 60 levels. And we had to work on everything from scratch. So we started on the server backend, on the technology, and the team grew at this time from about 4 to 6 that we had in the beginning to 15 later on. Next was then we had to adapt to the market development, because also when we did browser games, it meant that there was a run for browser games. Everybody was doing browser games at these times. And so we had to see what else were potential things that Mipumi had expertise with, that Mipumi could work on. So we tried around, we worked on technology at this time for Sony, for example. We also saw that we did smaller prototypes, and we also tried to get into business development and see that we get a lot of different contacts on a variety of different genres and different platforms to help us survive more or less. It also meant that we had to work at this time on projects that we actually didn't want to work on, but we needed to work on these to support our cash flow. This was maybe one of the key learnings at this time, that we found out that some things do not fit the company, they do not fit us as a team, and that's why we'd have to try to avoid them if we can, and if there is not any cash flow constraint with it involved. You see the team grew again a little bit. We were about 15 to 20 already, I think it was 17 at this time. We had a beautiful office in the 4th district in Vienna. And this was also the time when we finally worked on a great IP. It was when we started to work on Hitman. How did we come to that? It was involving a lot of due diligence processes. It was not that we knew someone and that's why we got this project. It was that first of all, we were in a pitch process involving different parties from all different countries. And we had to see that we achieved security, that we achieved technology, that we had seniority, and then finally we came up with the opportunity to work on this. It also meant that we had to work at this time on more than one project, because we started in the first 3 years always working the full team on one project, and at this time we had to see that we could scale up, so we could do one mid-sized project of, let's say, 6 months to 12 months, and one smaller project just so we could work with the cash flow, which means that if we had a problem with milestone payments, if we had a problem with finances, we could then see that we had another project going on that would support us. Yeah, Hitman HD Trilogy was released beginning of 2013. We worked on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 port. Are you familiar with that game? It is the first 3 Hitman games. It is Hitman, Silent Assassin Contracts, and Blood Money. And I can show you a short video. So Hitman only used part of our team because it was very tech related. It meant that most of our programmers were working on that. So we had to see what and how to work with the rest of the team, because we still had a very cross-disciplinary team, which means we had designers, we had artists, we had programmers, even though they were most part of the team, and we had production. This meant that we started working on art outsourcing, which was something totally new for us. We worked on the Wizard of Oz brand for Spooky Cool Games and Warner Bros. We made 60 buildings, and we made most of the main characters for a Facebook Unity game. And actually we only had 2 artists. That's why we had to see that we used outsourcing partners, that we could scale up to 15 people in 6 months to make this happen. And we also had to stretch a lot the time zones, because we worked with outsourcing partners in Europe while we supported the team that was in the US. So we worked from early mornings to late evenings to see that we could make the review processes work. This was still all work for hire at this time, and we knew that we started a company not to work on games but to make games. This was when we also started to pitch ideas, to see what we could do to work with grants, to come up on different varieties of genres, and finally we worked on Cute Kingdom, which was the idea to have a cross-platform game, but at this time it meant true cross-platform gaming. It was not just a port, it was 2 different gaming experiences on 2 different platforms. It was you had to collect these cute little animals, and it was an adventure where you had role-playing elements into it. And on iOS and Android, you could walk with them through little mazes and see that they get experience. And you could also send them out on their own. And then it would be that they sent you letters on Facebook. And you would get them in irregular intervals. And you could send them from different resources, so they could help them on their journeys. It was actually an interesting idea, because, as I said, it was cross-platforming and both platforms needed to be synchronous, but still it was also the time when mobile market exploded, because the beta of the game was finished something early 2013. At this time, there were so many games already in the iOS and Android store that we ourselves weren't that convinced that we would continue with this, and so we just stopped development on that. And actually, I think it was a good decision for us because we weren't so convinced about the game idea. We were convinced definitely about the technology behind it, but sometimes you even have to let go and to see that you start with something else or do something else then. Because this also opened up new opportunities. Do we want to see a video of a game that wasn't released?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah, I said that it opened up new opportunities because at this time, Team grew again a little bit. Ubisoft was looking for a partner to work on Anno, and they knew that we had been working on with IO on Hitman, and they knew that we had with Continuum gained some mobile experience, and so they approached us and asked us if we wanted to work on Anno Build an Empire for iOS and Android. So we had sustained some kind of credibility to work with well-known brands, which was good for us because we worked on Anno Build an Empire for a long time. It was actually also #1 free downloads in Austria and Germany and Switzerland, and it was in 10 countries, top 25 crossing apps, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I can also show you a short video if you want to. I'm just trying to be as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Team grew again a little bit, now about 20, 2014. This was also the time when we started to invest in company culture. It means that we started having a Mipumi day. This is the first Friday every month. All the people at Mipumi can work on their own ideas. They can see if they have prototypes. They can invest into making prototypes better, or we can even make the games they're currently working on better. They can fix bugs or make different solutions if they want to. And it will also mean that all the teams that we have currently, we have 3 of them, they will sync back with the projects that they have. So there will be short presentations. People can also present new own ideas if they want to. They can also get support from art and from content or design if they do. And this is something that is now going on for almost 2 years. And actually it has been really worthwhile, and a lot of ideas came out of that. And there is also something that we will see later. We also had our 5th anniversary. We tried to have more social events. We had tried to have more little tiny things that are really valuable for us as a team. And it was also important to know that there is not a lot of fluctuation at Mipumi. Means that a lot of people are still there even though they started 5 or 6 years ago, which is actually something great, because having been at Rockstar Games and also at Related Designs, I was used to see that we had to be flexible also with the teams that we had. Yeah, and this is when we went already up to 25. And this also meant that our beautiful office in the 4th district was getting too small, so we had to see that we get a new office. This also meant that we had again to see that we lose our flexibility, our stability, because this meant new costs that we needed to invest into. So here are some of these ideas. Loot the Flute, for example, it was a 4-player couch game where you had to fight a dragon. Office old, office new. And this is also the time when we started having our own team, which was working on original ideas. It is about the same size as the company as it was started. It's 4 to 6 right now. And the first IP that came out of it is Lion Song, as you know. And else than that, we are currently also working on the new Hitman game and also on a project for Red Bull. And I'm over time already, that's why I'm now stopping.
Thank you so much for coming to Graz, back again to your roots, basically. I think we have time for one very, very quick question. One quick question? Okay. Okay, so thank you so much again.
Thanks a lot.